It's a great question. I think for me, every leader needs to have vision. I think they need to be able to take people on a journey. Take people to where the business is going to go, where the opportunity is in the future, and as part of that, they've got to sell the story, and they've got to have passion, and they've got to have direction, and they've got to have that vision to really guide their teams. So what inspires me to be a leader is actually making a difference. The reason I joined Not on the High Street is because we work with some of the best small creative businesses across the UK. And in doing so, we give them access to customers all around the world. And by doing that, we're making a difference to their lives. We're enabling them to scale their businesses, to grow their businesses, to choose a different lifestyle and have a different livelihood. And that's, for me, is incredibly motivating that we have a core purpose, and that's what drives me on every day. I think one of the important traits for leaders is that they have humility. And for me as a leader, to stay connected with how fast the world is changing, you've got to not be afraid to ask questions. You've got to talk to people. For me, making sure that I go and talk to all my team, making sure that I spend time with our partners and our sellers and work out what's working and what's not working. That I look at other businesses, competitors and different industries, and try and get a sense of where the opportunities are. But you've always got to, I think, challenge yourself and question what you're doing today. And that requires a degree of humility to admit that you haven't got everything right, and that you need to learn from other people all the time. And it's critical in a world that's changing so fast that as leaders we keep that connection, we keep that groundedness, and we have that humility. I don't think there was one pivotal moment, but I definitely, during my MBA, which I did in my mid to late 20s, I took some time to think about where the world was changing and what I enjoyed about work. And for me, it's critical that you do enjoy work and you're interested in what you're doing. And it was very clear at the time, Facebook was just launched. It was still a closed platform at that time for students, but it was very clear that it was going to be a very big thing in the future, and that everything from marketing and social interaction was going to change, and that looked like it was the direction things were going in. Amazon was just taking off at the time. And so I was working for Tesco after my MBA, and I had the opportunity to be part of the Tesco.com business at the time. And that taught me a lot about what internet retailing was about. I looked hard at Amazon and saw what they were doing, and since then I've never looked back. And for me, keeping learning and always understanding where things are going has been critical for my career, and digital and e-commerce has been a big part of that. So the things we look for in graduates are, we're not looking for people who've got expertise, because that's what you can learn through life. You'll have developed a lot of interest, but what I care most about is curiosity. I want someone who's going to ask questions, who wants to know and has some drive to make a difference and get somewhere, because they can learn anything. I think one of the interesting things about the world today is I don't think we'll ever stop learning. And so to have a graduate come and join the business, I want someone that's got that curiosity and that drive to learn and continue to grow themselves. Yeah, if I could go back and give myself that piece of advice, I think, I definitely was I think I was the last generation that grew up thinking that education was for between 5 and 18 or 5 and 21. I just don't think that's how the world works now. And I think education has to be a lifelong thing. The world is changing so fast. To stay relevant in the workforce throughout a 40, 50-year career, I think you have to keep learning all the way through. And so for me, I look back in my 20s, should all be about learning. Don't worry about where you get to by the end of your 20s. As long as you're still learning about the jobs, you're getting experience, and you're building that throughout your 20s, in setting yourself up for the career after that. I think if you stop learning the second you leave university, then I think you're going to become quite irrelevant quite quickly. I think universities are critical in the skills makeup of the workforce in the UK. And I think in the UK we should be incredibly proud of the universities and the institutions that we have. But given how fast the world is changing, that social media is moving fast, that mobile technology, that new things, and just looking at the robotics lab here, it's incredible how quickly that technology moves on. And so I think universities have to be looking 10, 20 years out at the skills the future workforce is going to need and start to train our young people now to be ready for that workforce in the future. And so whatever those skills are, and we can see it, in the future space that's just opened here today, that actually that is about the next generation and the generation after that, and that's the role that universities have to play. It's critical. I think universities play a unique role because they connect the education system and young people, and they connect to the business world and the future workforce. And I think that translation, that intermediary role is an important one for universities to play. And the entrepreneurship course here is really interesting because it is practical and it's helping them start their businesses. So one thing I said to them was use the time wisely, pull on the resources they've got available to them. Because if as an entrepreneur in the real world, you don't get that resource that easily for you. You have to fight really hard to find all of that. And so they're very privileged, I think, through the way the course is set up here, that they're surrounded by like-minded people, by mentors and experts and resources that can really help kickstart their businesses. So embrace that, take every opportunity they've got, and really pull on every bit of learning they can while they're here. I think what's important for any business to stay ahead in the market is, first of all, to be very focused on their customers. And our customers are now shopping predominantly on their mobile phones. So unless we are absolutely at the forefront of mobile technology and thinking around where Apple and Google are taking the phone ecosystems, then we're going to fall behind in terms of what customers are expecting quite quickly. And to give you some examples, Apple, for example, you can now search into apps through Siri and through voice recognition. And it's important that we need to keep thinking about how we adapt our business to fit with where customers are. So I think for any business, for any leader in a business, you have to be customer focused. You have to know where your customers are. And then I think the other thing I would say is use the experts in the world around you. My team know far more about the technology than I ever will do. And I have to give them the freedom that they can find out the solutions and the ideas and the answers about where we need to take the business. So my role is to create the framework and give them the freedom to make the future of where Not on the High Street is going. I think the creative industries is an enormous strength for the UK. It always has been. And you look at all the creative industries, whether it's film and studios or music or fashion, the likes of Burberry, or software technology, whether it's gaming businesses or ASOS, Net-a-Porter, or businesses like ours and Not on the High Street. We're all using the creative talent. A lot of it's coming out of the education system and the universities. And I think what's really important from a government perspective is that we continue to foster the talent from youth through education, all the way through to helping them start businesses and creating the right infrastructure. I think there's a real risk at the moment as we look at STEM subjects, which are critically important, science, technology, engineering and maths, that we don't forget the creative subjects in that. And for me, it's not about STEM, it needs to be about STEAM. We can't forget the arts. And we want to develop young people that have a creative education as well as a science and engineering education. And the future, I think, is going to be about the combination of the two together. And that'd be one thing I'd be very passionate about, is making sure the government keeps that focus on the next generation coming in.